Hey everyone, welcome to the Seneca OOP 244 Workshop 3 Lab Walkthrough for Fall 2024. Let's take a quick look at what this workshop is about, and then let's write out the code. So for Workshop 3, we'll be looking at member functions and privacy. So if we scroll down to the Lab 1 part where the instructions are, we have two classes. We have the CSTR module that's already implemented for us. And then we need to write this CC class. This stands for credit card. So for the credit card class, we need to implement some private attributes. So we'll be having some class members to hold our data, some private functions, and then down here we'll have some public methods down here that we got to write out. So let's go up to the top and let's look at all the files that they're going to give us. So let's click in the lab. Okay, so now let's get all of these files inside of our Visual Studio. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to create a empty C project. Next. I'll call it Seneca Lab 3. Create. Okay, I created the project. Now let's move all of this inside of here. So let's start with main.cpp. I'm going to open it like this. And now I'm going to right click here, click add. I'm going to add a module. And I'm just going to add a CPP file. Let's rename this to main. We'll click add. And now all we got to do is just copy with the copy button and paste it inside of here. Perfect. So now we have our main file and our main method inside of here. Where's the main method? Right here. Next, let's go back now. Let's throw in the cstr.cpp and .h file. So these two files we're going to do next. So I'm going to right click again. I'm going to add a new class this time because there's a .h and a .cpp file. So we're going to call this cstr, and it'll automatically create the h and source file. So we're going to press OK. Let's click into the .h first, and then let's copy it. Let's go into the .h here, and Control A, Control V, paste it in. Cool. And now let's go back, and let's go in the source file. And from here, we'll copy it into the CSTR source file. So we're going to copy it, and then Control A, Control V to paste it in. Awesome. So this is fully implemented and we don't need to open these up again. It's a good idea to just look at this file and read what all these methods do. They just help us manipulate the char pointers for our strings. So they have string copy, get the string length, allo copy to allocate memory and copy it in. So nothing too complicated. This is just to handle our C strings. Let's close both of these now, and then let's throw in our last class. So we need to now throw in our cc.h and cc.cpp. So let's make a new credit card class, new class. They just call it 2 capital C's here. So that's the header and the source file. Okay. Okay, so let's go into the header file first. And let's just copy what they have here. So I'm going to do Control A, Control V, save it. And then I'm going to go back to the CPP file. Same thing here. I'm just going to copy it, go inside the right CPP file, and then Control A, Control V. Perfect. As you can see, we already have the print number and the display methods already implemented for us. So we got to do all the other functions. But before we continue, we also got to implement or include this CSV file, which is just a bunch of credit card numbers for the output. So here, we're just create a new item. And I'm going to call this cc.csv. So make sure you name it like this, and then click add. And I'm just going to drag inside of my resources file, just because I like putting it there. And then click into this file here, and we can click the copy button. And this is just a CSV file of different credit card numbers, names, expiries. Paste in here. So now we have our CSV file of credit cards. So this is what our program will be pulling data from. Okay, so I'm going to close this now because we don't need to look at this anymore. We mainly just got to write the code in our .h and our CPP file for this lab. There's not much else that we have to do. So let's start with the header file, and let's write out all of the prototypes and all of our class members that we have. So let's scroll down, and lab 1, here we go. So yeah, it's saying that they already implemented some functions for us. So first, we want to add our private attributes. So we're going to add a credit card holder's name. We're going to add the CVV, the expiry month, the expiry year, and the credit card number. And they tell us what data types to use. So let's start off by writing private, because we want these to be private attributes. You'll just write the word private with a colon. And then in here, we'll do, so the first one we want is char pointer name. So char pointer, I'll just call it name for the credit card holder's name. Next, we want a short CVV for the CVV number. Next, we want a short, we'll call this expiry month. And then we'll also have another short expiry year. And then lastly, we need the unsigned long integer. So unsigned long, and we'll just call this card number. So this is going to hold the credit card number. We need a long because the numbers in the CVV file are pretty long, and a normal int can't handle this. So we'll use the long. So we already have the display and print number methods implemented for us. So let's go to the first private method that we need to implement. I think the first one's called validate. Yes, validate. So here's the prototype. We could just copy it, and we can actually just paste it right here, because we want this to be a private method. And then I'm just going to reformat it a little bit, put it all on the same line here. Cool. Okay, so now we have all of our private members. Now let's write some of the public members we need. So if we scroll down, we'll see public methods here. And now let's write out all of the prototypes for these functions. So let's go to the end of this line. And then let's just go back so you can see it. There we go. So to write all of our public members now, we're going to do public, colon, and now we're going to write all the prototypes right here. So we'll have public set, we'll have public cleanup, we'll have is empty, we'll have another set, but we're overloading the original set with 5 different arguments. So set. And here there's 2 default values. So we have the expiry month and expiry year with default values. So I'm just going to put this all on the same line. There we go. Yeah, and then lastly, we just need the function display. So I'll copy this as well, and I'll paste it. Awesome. Now we have all of our prototypes written out. Now let's start writing out all of our functions. So we'll start with this private one, validate. So you can just click on the screwdriver here, and you can click Create Definition in CPP file. So when you click it, it'll write out the prototype for you here. Let's add some spaces, and let's read what we need to do here. So for validate, we are going to implement this private method to validate the credit card information received through the argument list as follows. Name should not be a null pointer and should be more than 2 characters long. The credit card number value should be between this number and that number. So by the way, ULL makes the literal number as an unsigned long integer. We want to make sure that the CVV is a 3-digit number. We want to make sure that the month expiry is between 1 and 12, and then the year expiry is between 24 and 32. The method should return true if all the conditions are met, otherwise it should return false. This function does not modify the object, is constant. So yeah, that is constant right here at the very end. This means that we're not modifying anything in the class. So let's start off by checking the cardholder's name. So first we want to make sure that it's not null, and then we want to make sure it's longer than 2 characters. So we'll start off by writing if our name is not equal to null pointer, or you can also write this in the short form like this as well. So you could say exclamation point name. So this is saying if it's null, or if our string length, and this little function here is coming from our CSTR file. We have the string length, so it's already implemented for us. So we'll be using some of these methods here if you see me write them out in the credit card source file. So we're just going to say if the name, because this is going to return the length of any C string. So if the name is less than 2, we will return false. So that's the first check for the name. So here we'll write check name is not null and more than 2 characters. Actually, we want to make sure that's more than 2 characters, so we got to probably do if it's equal or less than. Next, we want to check that the credit card number is between these two numbers. So what we can do is we'll just check if it's outside of that range, and if it is, we'll return false. So we'll say if, and here we have card number as the parameter. So if the card number, and we'll say if it's less than this value, or if it's more than this value, so say, or if the card number is more than this value, then we'll also return false. And then we'll check the CVV number. So we want to make sure it's a 3-digit number. So we're going to say if the CVV, if this is less than 100, because anything less than 100 is not 3 digits, or if CVV is more than 999, because that means it'll be 1,000 or greater, and that means it's not a 3-digit number. So in that case, these are both false scenarios, so we'll return false. Next, we want to check the month, so we want to make sure it's between 1 and 12. So we'll say if CVV, sorry, not CVV, if the expire month, which one do we have here? It's called EXP month. EXP month. So if this is less than 1, or if EXP month is greater than 12, so that means it's not between 1 or 12, we'll return false again. And then lastly, we'll check the expiry year. So we'll say if the EXP year is less than 24, or if expiry year is greater than 32. So if that's the case, then we'll also return false. Okay, so these should all be satisfied, and I think we're good to carry on now. Okay, so next, print number. Print numbers are already implemented. So now let's do set. So let's go over to our .h again, and I'm just going to have it write the code for me. Awesome. I'm actually going to move this to the bottom because these are now our public methods and above our private methods. Okay, so set. This function sets the object to a safe empty state by setting all the values to 0 and the name pointer to null pointer. Okay, seems pretty simple. So set everything to 0 and the name to a null pointer. So name is equal to null pointer. And then we'll do card number is equal to 0. And then expiry month equal to 0, and then expiry year is equal to 0, and then lastly CVV is equal to 0. So I think this is correct. We have the CVV, the year, month, card number, and name. Okay, I think that's done. Next, let's go to cleanup. So what does cleanup do? First, it will deallocate the cardholder's name using free mem in cstr.h. So yeah, more of those built functions for us. And then it will call the set method to set the object to a safe empty state. Okay, so let's do that. So first thing we want to do is called free mem, and that's the method coming from this file, or is it free mem, and that just frees up the memory for us. So we'll call it free mem and put in name. And then we want to set our credit card to a safe empty state. So to do that, we can just call set here, because this is setting it to the safe empty state we're looking for. So we'll do set and then semicolon. I think that's all what we need to do for cleanup. Next we have is empty. So let's go ahead and throw that in. Returns if the CC object is in a safe empty state or not, by returning true if the cardholder name pointer attribute of the object is null pointer. Otherwise, it will return false. Okay, so all what we're doing here is we're just going to check if the name is a null pointer. If it is, then we'll return true. If it's not, we'll return false. So an easy way you can do this is you can just return exclamation point name. So this is saying if name is null, we're going to return true. So this will satisfy it. Because if it's not null, then this will return false. Because all this is saying is you're saying, is this empty? Yes or no. If it is, true. If it's not, return false. That's all what we need to do for is empty. And then lastly, we have the set function. So let's go back and let's add that in. Okay, cool. So let me just close this so we can see all the fields. I'll make this a little bit smaller as well. First, it will clean up the object to a saved empty state. Then, if all the arguments are valid using validate, it will dynamically keep a copy of the name in the name attribute using allocopy function in the cstr.h, and then sets the rest of the attributes to their corresponding values. If validation fails, nothing will be set. So first what we want to do is call cleanup, which will clean up our current object and make sure it's in a safe empty state. So let's call cleanup. And then what we want to do is make sure that our parameters are all valid. So what we can do is we can call the validate function and pass in all of the arguments into the function here. So we'll now call if it's not validated. So we'll say exclamation mark validate, and then we'll pass in cc name, we'll pass in cc number, we'll pass in the CVV, we'll pass in the expiry month, and we'll pass in the expiry year. So if it's not validated, we will do nothing, and we can just write the word return, and this will just exit out of the function early. Keep in mind that our return type is void, so we can't return a number like whatever, but we can write just the word return, which will exit out of our function early and prevent the rest of the code running. If we hit this point in the code, it means that this passed and these are valid attributes. So now what we'll do is we'll first call the allocopy, and we'll pass in our name with the incoming CC name. So that should dynamically allocate the name. And then we want to copy in the credit card number. So we'll do card number is equal to the credit card number. And then we'll do CVV is equal to CVV. But because this is the same name as our class member, we have to use the keyword this to make sure we select the class's attribute. So we have to use this, CVV, and this needs to be equal to CVV. And then we got to do the expiry month. Expiry month is equal to expiry month. And then we want expiry year is equal to exp year. Yeah, and then I think lastly we just got to write the display function as well. Let's go ahead and let's write that last function now, display. Awesome. So what do we want to do inside of here? This is going to say, if the object is empty, print invalid credit card record and go to new line. If it is not in a safe empty state, display the credit card class using the private display method. So if it is not in a safe empty state, display the credit card number. Oh yeah, so it's saying if it's not empty, then display it. So that's pretty simple. So what we'll do is we'll just say if is empty. So if it's empty, we want to print out that message here and go to a new line. So we'll copy this, and we just got to do cout print out the message, and then go to a new line. So we'll say else, if it's not in a safe empty state, display the credit card as normal using that display function. So what we can do actually is we could just write the else here. So it'll either do one or the other. Yeah, and then now we'll just call display, and then we'll pass in all of our attributes. We'll pass in name, we'll pass in card number, we'll pass in the expiry year, we'll pass in the expiry month. And just for the record, if you look right here, you can see that it's telling us which attributes are supposed to be next. So that's how I know which ones to pass in. And then lastly, CVV. And now this should be the display method. So here, if it's in a saved empty state, we're going to print invalid credit card. Else, we're going to just use our display method that is in our the private member right here. Display, and then we print all of our numbers. So at this point, the code should be completed. Let's try running it now, and let's compare the output with what we have inside of here. So let's do Control F5. I'll compile and run. Let's see if this is the correct output. Let's go into the lab. Let's go into the correct text output. There we go. Yeah, okay, so I think we do have some errors. But at the bottom here, everything's invalid. So what's going on here? Let's see. If it's saying everything is invalid, we probably have an issue with our function here. Okay, let's go through this line by line, and let's see why it's not valid. So we're saying if name is null, or if our string is less than or equal to 2 characters. Let's go back to the requirements. Validate, where are we? Okay, so let's look at this again. So we're saying, oh, because at the bottom here, we're not returning true. So at the very end, so these should all hit false. Here, we should be returning true if we don't hit any of these return statements. So now if we run it, we should get the correct output. Control F5. Okay, so I think we have the correct output now. So let's go over to, where is it? Let's go back up to our lab folder. And then let's click the correct output. Let's compare it. So we have Hubert, credit card number, looks like it's correct. Next we have a valid credit card number with very long name. This looks like it worked with the long credit card number. New CSV, new expiry. Okay, it looks like it's working, I think. Next we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 invalid lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 invalid lines. And then we have this line. Looks like it lines up with this line. And then let's look at our last line. We should end on line 87. This ends on line 87. Perfect. So it looks like we have the correct output. But now that we do, let's also run it inside the command line to make sure we have no memory leaks, because we are using dynamic memory with that string pointer. So let's close this. I'm going to make this full screen now. So to open up my command line in Visual Studio, I'm just going to right click on my project, and I'm going to say, where is it? Open in terminal. So now I opened up my terminal here. Okay, so now we're inside of our terminal, and you need to make sure you have virtualization enabled on your computer. If you're not sure how to do that, just Google how to do it through your BIOS settings. But you can just type out these commands and see if it ends up working for you. So first we want to do WSL set default, and then Ubuntu. And if you don't have Ubuntu installed, you can just go to the Microsoft Store and install it. So that operation is successful. Next you want to do is WSL, enter. Now we're in our Ubuntu server here. Next we want to do is sudo apt update, and then you need the password for your computer. Yeah, it always glitches out whenever I do this install command, but it looks like it finished. Now we can press Control and L to clear out the screen. And now let's get that compilation command from the lab. Let's go back to the main file now. They should have the compile command down here somewhere. Right here. Okay. So we can use this line to compile it. So we can just copy it. Then we'll paste it in. Or you got to right click to paste it in. And now we just got to write all of our CPP files. Only those files. So we have our main.cpp. We have our cstr.cpp. And then we have cc.cpp. Let's run it. So it looks like it compiled. So let's try running it by calling, we called our output file ws. So let's do ws. Sorry, we actually need to do /ws for the present directory. So make sure it still works. Looks like it does. Okay, let's clear the screen again by doing Control L. So that works. Let's go back to the lab screen now, and let's grab the valgrind command to make sure there are no memory leaks. So I copied it. Let's right click, and then right here, let's do /. So it will call ws. It's glitching out, but I think it's fine right now. So let's press enter. Awesome. All heap blocks were freed. No memory leaks. Cool. So you should have a fully working version of the assignment now. Good luck submitting, and let me know if you guys need any help with any other assignments. Thanks. Bye.